The film begins with a farmer placing a scarecrow in a cornfield. Several crows are seen circling high above before swooping down and starting to peck at the scarecrow. The scarecrow, who turns out to be a real woman, quickly regains consciousness. She tries to speak, but can only let out muffled cries. Just then, a crow appears and pecks one of her eyeballs before flying away. In the next scene, a group of friends are seen pulling a car at a remote gas station. The girls Ash and Devin leave the car to relieve themselves while the boys Eli and Farbsy stay in the car. Eli confesses to Farbsy that he is in love with Ash and wants to propose to her, but Farbsy tries to dissuade him, saying it is too early for him to make such mistakes since they will meet many pretty girls when they both go to college. As they talk, something falls from the sky and lands on their windshield. When they look closer, they are horrified to see that it is a thumb. The boys turn to see where it came from, but all they see is a flight of crows. Eli is so scared that he wants to call the police immediately, but the Farbsy reassures him because he doesn't want to ruin their weekend trip. They try to wipe it away with the windshield wipers, but that only makes the situation worse because there is blood smeared everywhere. When they notice the girls coming, Eli tries to divert their attention while Farbsy throws his thumb under the car. They then get their things out of the car and decide to drive to the nearby lake. That's when Devin notices Eli staring through her shorts, and she flirts with him a little too. However, they are soon interrupted when the other two get out of the car and rush towards them. The group then sets off for Miller's Trail, ignoring the no travel sign and continuing on. Moments later, they find a scarecrow in a cornfield and are surprised to find that the birds are not afraid of it. Ash finds a small crow on the ground and approaches it, but she panics when she sees the crow eating a human finger. However, Farbsy comforts her with a lie, saying that it is not a finger and that crows do not eat meat. Meanwhile, we see a boy in rags running across the cornfield screaming for help. He removes the sack over his head and reveals that his mouth is sewn shut. Then a man appears out of nowhere who pulls him back with a rope and finally kills him with a sickle. On the other hand, the runs out of water group and the girls state that they are too exhausted to continue and that they want to go back. So the boys advise them to stop and rest while looking ahead and seeing how far away the lake is. Moments later, the boys discover a beautiful lake and invite the girls to come see it. After taking off their shoes, everyone jumps into the lake and has fun swimming and splashing around. Sometime later, Eli and Ash get out of the water and sit by the lake, where he proposes to her by making a promise and expressing his love for her. Devin and Farbsy also come out of the lake and Devin tells them that she won't go back as she is too exhausted. She then asks the boys to get the car while they wait there. Shortly after the boys leave, Ash hears a strange noise coming from the bushes. She calls to see if anyone is nearby, but receives no answer. On the other hand, when the boys reach the main road, they discovered that their car was missing. Farbsy screams in anger so loudly that the ladies can hear him in the distance. This scares the girls and they quickly get up and run away. Meanwhile, Eli is annoyed by Farbsy's negligence and the loss of the car, and they argue while blaming each other. The girls finally meet them and end their fight asking why they are fighting. Eli and Farbsy reveal that the car has been stolen. While discussing what to do next, Ash notices a farmer and everyone calls him for help, but the farmer ignores them and walks away. The group then decides to approach the farmer in hopes that he can help them. As they move in his direction, they come across a fence and force their way inside. However, Farbsy is afraid to cross it and in doing so he loses his balance and seriously injures his leg. As Farbsy lies on the floor screaming in pain, Eli takes off his shirt and wraps it around his leg to stop the bleeding. They then carry the injured Farbsy into the fields, where they lean him against a scarecrow. Since they lost their car and are now hungry and thirsty, Eli decides to get help and Devin immediately offers to go with him. Eli tells Ash and Farbsy to stay close to the scarecrow so he knows where to look for them. After walking for a while, Eli notices a barn and decides to go there, but Devin stops him and tries to seduce him. Eli initially tries to stop her, claiming he doesn't want to cheat on Ash, but soon succumbs to temptation. On the other hand, Farbsy pulls out 2 Ziploc bags filled with weed to help him deal with the terrible pain. He asks Ash to make him a large joint to smoke, which she obligingly does. Meanwhile, Eli hears a whistle in the fields and asks Devin to stop and get up. Suddenly the farmer appears behind them and punches Eli in the face, knocking him out. Devin panics and tries to escape, but is immediately captured by the farmer, who then also knocks her unconscious. Meanwhile, Ash and Farbsy are smoking a joint together when Farbsy tells her that he needs to take a poop. Ash is hesitant to accompany him, but because he is wounded, she leads him a little further into the bushes and comes back to the Scarecrow. Next, the farmer takes Devin to a barn, where there is also a boy's body. Then he puts her on the chair and ties her to it. At that moment, Devin regains consciousness and screams for help, but the farmer puts a belt around her neck and seals her lips with a needle. Devin continues to scream through the muffled noises, but the farmer becomes annoyed by the noise and punches her in the face, knocking her out instantly. Back in the cornfield, Farbsy is still busy taking care of the dump while Ash examines the Scarecrow. She soon discovers that the Scarecrow is not filled with straw, but rather has worms and maggots crawling inside. This scares her and she tells Farbsy to hurry up. While Farbsy is still relieving himself, he hears someone whistling but doesn't pay any attention. On the other hand, the farmer returns to the barn with Eli's body and ties him to a chair. He then enters another room and fills his syringe with a paralyzing liquid. As he prepares to give Eli an injection, Devin forces his mouth open and screams for Eli to wake up. This makes the farmer angry and he goes to Devin and injects her with a sedative. He then takes a rag and covers her face. Meanwhile, Ash becomes increasingly anxious and frightened as Farbsy still hasn't returned. Suddenly a man grabs her from behind and tells her that there was a terrible mistake. He continues by telling her that she must follow him if she wants to survive. Despite her suspicions about the strange man who appeared out of nowhere, Ash has no choice but to trust him. When they arrive at the barn, she notices her stolen car, and when they get inside, the man reveals that he is the farmer's son. He informs Ash that the Scarecrows in the cornfields are real humans and that his father is the one who puts them up. The man reveals that his mother was accidentally killed by intruders a long time ago, which is why his father kills all the intruders. Suddenly they hear the farmer trying to open the door, so the man tells Ash to hide immediately. Farbsy's body is dragged in by the farmer and then tied to the chair. He removes a cloth to reveal Eli, whose mouth is also sewn on. The son ties Eli to a wooden cross while the farmer pins his right arm, causing Eli to scream in pain. This is all too much for Ash, so she yells at him to stop. She approaches the farmer and tries to stab him with a large screwdriver, but he easily stops her. Ash looks desperately to the farmer's son for help, but he too is helpless against his father. And suddenly the farmer knocks her unconscious. Afterwards, Eli, who is tied to a wooden cross, is captured by the farmers and placed in the middle of the cornfield as a scarecrow. Moments later, Ash regains consciousness with a mask covering her face. The son comes in and takes it away, telling her to be quiet. He then cuts her ties off and urges her to leave immediately. When she asks about her friends, he tells her that they are already in the field. At that moment, the farmer suddenly appears and stares at her with a cold gaze. The son insists that none of them deserve to die and tries to persuade him to let go of the girl. He claims that although the intruders never intended to harm his wife, she was mistakenly killed. Ash then quickly manages to escape while the farmer stabs his son in the neck, killing him instantly. In the next scene, Ash is seen running through the cornfields trying to find a way out. When she encounters a scarecrow, she takes off the mask, believing it to be Eli, but she is shocked to see Devin, who is already dead. Ash takes the nail from her hand and continues running. She then spots another scarecrow, but as it gets closer it turns out to be the farmer in disguise. She gets scared and runs in the opposite direction, but the farmer catches her and throws her to the ground. Just then, Ash picks up the nail from the ground, hits him in the face, and manages to run again. Moments later, Ash hears a boy whimpering in the distance, and as she follows the sound, she comes across a scarecrow. When she takes off the mask, she sees that it is Farbsy shaking in fear. Ash desperately tries to take the nails out, but she fails again. Farbsy then points to a shovel on the ground and she tries to use it to free him. Suddenly the injured farmer appears behind her and pushes her to the ground. As he tries to strangle her, Farbsy insults him to divert his attention, and upon hearing this, the farmer turns to face the loudmouth. He attacks Farbsy with the shovel, killing him instantly. As Ash manages to escape again, she gathers the courage to continue, but when she hears the farmer whistle again, she trips and hits her head on a rock. Sometime later, Ash regains consciousness and notices a car in front of her with a couple getting intimate to loud music. Since she can no longer walk, she crawls towards the car with all her strength and screams for help. The pair think they hear something, but when they look outside they can't see Ash as she is lying on the ground much closer to the car. Finally, Ash manages to drag himself to the car and desperately reaches for the door handle. But unfortunately, the farmer comes from behind and takes her into the fields. The next morning, we see Ash tied to the cross while the farmer drags her and lays her on the ground as a scarecrow. Then a crow appears out of nowhere and attacks her repeatedly. This causes her mask to fall off and she begins to bleed. The film ends with Ash screaming in pain as she realizes that all her friends are dead and that she is next in line.
So, that's the end of our movie. If you've come this far, make sure to give a thumbs up and subscribe my channel. See you later.